Got it together. Got it together. Let's refresh the page here. Make sure that everything's showing the way it's supposed to be shown. Internet's still a bit sluggish. Still working on. We're still working on. There it is. All right. Massive protest happening. We're still working on getting that internet thing fixed. They were supposed to give us a call back today. They didn't give us a call back. I don't know. We gotta tap them on the shoulder and find out when are they going to do something about the internet. They were supposed to call us at 7 or 8. They didn't call us today at 7 or 8. So we're gonna make it work. I'll have to call them after the show, or call them after the important parts of the show resolves itself. Either way, we're gonna make this work. So let me start over. Welcome to This and That. I appreciate you guys coming to the show, bearing with me with the problems that we're having with technical difficulties yet again. Like I said, it's a tough month. We're gonna make it work. And while we make it work, I really appreciate your patience. For the rest of you that are just getting into the new show, today we're talking about the protest with the truckers. So just know that you're in the right spot. We had to finagle our way into this, so kind of tough to try to get everything working with multiple platforms here, because TikTok was easy for me to throw it in there manually on the back end, but this is the latest breakthrough for YouTube platform, and I had almost 30 shows up there, so I had to move some things around, and that kind of interfered with my ability to be successful. So, human error, gonna have to blame it on human error. I can't say that it's all the technological faults of the computer system. Human error. I started the wrong show because I have too many shows up there, so I have to relist that show after the show. Oh boy. Either way, we got it going. So we're talking about the trucker revolution. So these guys, these big rigs, the 18-wheelers, those guys, they drive trucks for a living. They cross country. They typically get, I think, between 40 and 65 cents per mile per hour kind of thing, where these guys travel 20, 30,000 miles. They get a decent quantity of money for their standard of living. They basically live out the back of their trucks. Some of them grab some hotels, stuff to that effect. They're getting pennies on a dollar for pay, and have been getting pennies on a dollar for pay for a very long time. And as a result, they're starting to protest and saying they are not driving trucks unless they get an 80% increase on their wage. So truckers now want to get paid, and it's not just the truckers. You have the warehouse workers, you have the dock people, stuff to that effect. You have individuals that are averaging about $15 to $18 an hour that are looking for an 80% pay increase and refuse to work until they receive that pay increase. Now, this is not across the country, but the protest is occurring, from what I hear, between Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, which is the lower East Coast and part of the lower South side of the United States, which is half of the shipping industry almost. So anybody who has been ordering things that is supposed to be coming within 3 to 5 business days, and it's been 7 to 10 days, and you have not heard hide nor hair of that particular package, if that package is commuting through the South, there's a strong possibility that you're going to be experiencing some delays in transportation of goods because of this protest. It's equivalent to the delays in shipment of products when 9/11 occurred. Anybody who has something on that plane lost it if it wasn't insured. I recommend that you assure your shit, especially when you start dealing with shit, start coming up missing. But while we are dealing with this, I want to point out the highs and lows of what's going on with the trucker industry and the protest, because there's two dynamics of this that I kind of wanted to talk about on today's show. And one of the dynamics, make sure that you guys, as we go into this, start talking about this topic, make sure that you guys like and subscribe. You guys should also try to join the membership. We have some memorabilia showing up on the show right now. So if you guys are interested in picking up some shirts, t-shirts, coffee mugs, stuff like that, just think about it. Let's get into this topic about the truckers protesting. Like we've heard trucker riots recently where trucks are crashing into one another on purpose. We've heard a trucker ran over somebody late this week, early last week, something to that effect. It's getting nuts. Usually when Americans protest, it's not really a Greenpeace, like tie yourself to a tree kind of protest. Typically, the protests are angry people yelling and fussing and cussing. They've been standing out there for a few weeks with signs. They're tired of throwing signs, and they are raising signs in the air, and they start throwing stuff. They start throwing large objects. They start inflicting physical harm to people. They start throwing rocks at the building of the company that they're mad at, or the CEOs and executives. They start throwing objects at the higher ups in the company that they're working for, and or the one that they're protesting. And then they start doing radical behavior. As the radical behavior starts getting more severe, you start dealing with individuals that radical behavior actually negatively impacts your the society around the protest. So it goes from being peaceful protest to non-peaceful protest. From what I understand, we have less peaceful protesting occurring throughout the protesting area. But even if the protests are peaceful, the trucks aren't moving, the products aren't being shipped. So this is negatively impacting the economy. How is it going to negatively impact the economy? Well, certain goods that travels along this route are not making it to the companies that are supposed to be selling those goods. That's going to eliminate the availability of certain products, cause products to sell out in markets where products are not supposed to sell out, and they're supposed to be reasonably restocked within a rational period of time. In addition to that, that's going to have negative impacts on sales. More than one negative impact on sales. You say screw the companies that are not making money off of the fact that they're not getting their products. But you have to understand is that with low supply, you have high demand. And while the product isn't being shipped, doesn't mean that you don't still want to buy the product. That's going to tip the scales on inflation. People are going to be willing to pay more money for the product, which means that the cost of product is going to go up. So for those of us who are balling on a budget, and for those of us that are living beneath your means, where you're living modestly, you're not trying to spend too much money unnecessarily on things that you don't necessarily need, or not spending too much money on things that you actually do need. You're looking at people being discouraged from buying things because of the inflation. Now, the other issue is that as they demand for an 80% increase in pay, if the closer the big businesses get to meeting that pay increase, the higher the cost of products is going to be, because part of the cost of the product is manufacturing the product, part of the cost of product is advertising and selling the product, and part of the cost of product is transporting the product to all of the areas that are receiving the product. So you think 80% increase on a pay raise, anybody that was making $20 an hour is trying to make an 80% increase. So you're looking at getting a 16 extra dollars per hour on your $20 an hour raise, where you're trying to go from $20 an hour to $36 an hour, or you're trying to go from $16 to $18 an hour to $30 an hour. Now, this is a massive spike where minimum wage is $15 an hour, or expected to meet $15 an hour requirements by the end of 2026. But when you start talking about damn near doubling the pay raise of the transportation services, you got to understand that all transportation services, including cars, where transporting a car cross country costs you $2,000 to $3,000. You talk about increasing the cost of that by 80%. You're talking about the transportation cost of moving a car from one side of the country to the other to be about $4,000 to $5,000 now because of this increase. The big businesses are, if they do submit to the demands of the workers, it's going to offset the cost to the customer. So that's going to be one of our problems. The other problem is going to be the negative impact on the economy, because we're not going to have access to goods and services as readily until they stop protesting. This is different from teachers refusing to teach the kids at school. This is different from kids protesting going to school, stuff like that. This is the routes that are protesting don't have groceries when they sell out. Think about that, because most of us don't farm. Most of us don't have the ability to make stuff on our own land. So when you're looking at the fact that everything you eat comes from your local grocery store, your local grocery store is being negatively impacted by the protest, everything you buy is gone. Now, what are the other implications behind this particular type of protest? Now, remember, you guys, we were talking about how Project 2025 is going to be negatively impacting things. But before we started talking about that, we were talking about how Elon Musk, who was on Project 2025, was creating those trucks through Tesla that had no pilot. And they had some companies that just started using trucks with no drivers in them to transport product across country. And I think it was a value trucker or something like that, that was moving product across country. Now, one of the things that you have to recognize is that with these products that are being transported across country, you have taxi cab drivers that are being replaced with no pilot cabs, bus drivers that are being replaced with no pilot buses. You already have the semi autopilot in the cars, where some vehicles allow the driver to sit in the driver's seat and not have to operate the steering wheel, and you have other high-end vehicles that allows the passenger to be nowhere near the steering wheel, where the vehicle is 100% operated by the machine, where the vehicle is not at all able to be controlled by the passenger. There's no steering wheel or anything. Now, when you think about this, you think about the fact that those protesters that are saying, "Hey, I'm not going back to work until you double my wage." How you doing, Vic? What is that? Velcro? So my question is, how are you guys going to handle when they give you the pay raise? You guys are able to go back to work, and then they phase you out with automation. They start using the AIs, because you know that Amazon's got all those robots in the warehouse. So Digitech will be able to provide those products to all of the warehouse companies across the country. So warehouse workers will start getting replaced after they get that pay raise. They're going to replace with the machines. Then the truckers are going to start getting replaced with machines, where there are no need for truckers, because the trucks are driving themselves. You're also going to start looking at it. It's segueing into a situation where the between there not needing to be any humans in the warehouse and nobody needing to be in the truck, no driver trucks will lead to unknown goods being transported across country, where nobody with a conscience will say, "I don't think it's a good idea for us to transport this." And now you're going to have those same dark money lobbyists transporting unauthorized, unethical goods across country because there's no drivers in the truck. But let's get away from the theory of truth that you will write off as a conspiracy until it starts happening. You're going to look at the fact that you are currently getting paid $18 to $20 an hour, $25 an hour to drive a truck. You might get $30 to $40 an hour to drive a truck if you're highly experienced. Now, you want 80% increase in pay because of what? The cost of living? And then when you get that pay, I'm not saying you're not deserving of it. What I'm saying is that when you get that pay, you go from $40 an hour to $80 an hour. The value of what you do is offset by the cost of the driverless trucks that they have to pay to replace you. And from what I understand, Elon Musk has those rigs, and they have some that are the whole rig, or just the primary front of the truck, the like the truck or trailer, or just the truck. So you could just have the truck itself and have a massive company that they buy like a bunch of rigs, and you would assume that Elon Musk is going to sell that rig for the same price as the Cybertruck, or something close to the same price as the Cybertruck. So if these no pilot rigs cost $100,000, and you're asking for $80 an hour, $40 an hour. Let's just really calculate the value, because if you buy and bring your own truck, subcontracted worker, right? And you making, let's say you're making $40 an hour, and you're doing 18-hour days. So 20 hours. Let's say you're doing 20-hour days. You and a partner, you're doing 20-hour days. And just calculating the $40 an hour over 20-hour days, you're looking at like $800 a day, right? And let's say that you work 5 days a week, just to keep the math smooth, you're doing $4,000 a week. 4 weeks out of a month, you're doing like $16,000 a month, which is $160,000 a year. $160,000 for 10 months. So for a year, you're looking at like another 32,000. So you would be like 192,000 for the year for one driver. Now, driver brings his own truck, shows up when he can, works until he's tired, and then stops. Now, the wage for one trucker to bring his own truck to work at $40 an hour, before you get the pay raise, or after you get the pay raise if you're not getting $40 an hour, is equivalent to one of Tesla's driverless trucks. So for you to do the work yourself, they could pay 2 driverless trucks to never take breaks and rotate out, where they can be recharged and then put back on the road, effective just about immediately. And that those 2 trucks would outwork you, because you would be working 40 hours a week. Some drivers do 60 to 80 hours a week. When you think about 60 to 80 hours a week, you think about overtime. So if you're doing time and a half, and you start calculating damn near double time, where you once was getting $40 an hour, now you're almost getting $80 an hour. You, as the one person mandatorily required by law to get paid $80 an hour for your time and a half and holiday pay, is equivalent to 3 of those driverless trucks to replace you. Now, that means that 2 drivers doing 60 to 80 hours a week of driving could get replaced by 6 driverless trucks, dollar for dollar value, where those 6 driverless trucks would be able to do the commuting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, holidays, weekends, Labor Days, no time off, no vacations. The only time that they would need to stop is the time that they would need to charge. And if you're using 3 trucks to do the job of 1, you would have 3 different trucks in 3 different locations, where if they're reasonably a distance away from one another, this truck could drive 50% of its distance, pass it off to another truck that would drive 50% of its distance, pass it off to another truck that'll drive 50% of its distance, and sit there and utilize half of the charge time, and then go back to the original base and then sit there and charge. Now, I can't tell you what the mileage range is of those rigs that Elon's making for the shipping industry. But when you talk about driverless trucks, and you think about the fact that the driverless trucks can be utilized in mass quantity, especially when those driverless trucks come with the capabilities of utilizing solar panels on the back of the rigs that could increase the charge capacity of the trucks. You're looking at these trucks potentially 500 to 1,000 miles per truck. It's a 3,000-mile journey for the cargo. You could have 10 trucks, and each one of them take a percentage, and you're looking at increasing productivity, because one truck will drop it off, another truck will pick it up, and it is what it is. Now, I find that We were talking about this earlier this year. It's two interesting things that we talk about. Is that we talked about how the artificial intelligence was supposed to be conquering the known workforce, because the known workforce is demanding more money than big business is willing to pay. We also have to take into consideration the fact that a lot of us were complaining about the illegal immigrants that were coming into the country, and we should really be reconsidering that perspective. I think I'm going to set up a show to talk about those individuals that are being allowed in and allowed in under asylum, and how that is dancing around, violating what we expect to see from our local government. But just look at the fact that they want to send all of the illegal immigrants back to where they came from, where those illegal immigrants that would work for $7 an hour would do the same work that these protesters are demanding $40 an hour to get. Do you understand how the complexities of the economy function, where if we want to keep prices low, but we continue to demand increases in money that will cost an increase in the product, and then we're willing to waste the money that we get to lavishly clothe ourselves with fancy things, but we're not willing and or capable of investing our money into ways to make more money for us, we are contributing to the influx of inflation. So before minimum wage can catch up to living wage, wasteful spending fuels inflation like cancer. The big business is going to need to make money somewhere. They can only charge so much for the product before people start saying, I'm not going to be able to afford that. But wasteful spending allows for the inflation. If most of us was to say, I'm not buying that at that price, because cell phones in this country, there is a law that caps the price of a cell phone in the United States, but we're willing to pay $1,500 for a cell phone. They just put us on a payment plan because the law says that you can't sell, you cannot effectively sell it outright above a certain price, but you can finance it. There's loopholes to every expectation. So when we're dealing with these protesters, here's an interesting question. If you're not getting paid to go to work because you can't use PTO time to protest, can't use sick days to protest, can't use vacation days to protest. So and if you did, like, two questions now. Let's start with the first question. How were you able to provide for your family if you're not making enough money before you started protesting? You stopped working and now you're not generating an income. I know some people say, I'm going to jump on unemployment. I'm not saying that the government won't pay you unemployment because you quit your job going on strike. But what I am going to say is that if unemployment does apply to a situation like this, you're only getting about 60% of your income. So if you were making $18 an hour and they do decide to give you unemployment while you're protesting for a month and a half on end, they're only giving you 60% of your income. The 60% of 20 is 16, isn't it? 14, something like that. 16% of 18 is going to be closer to 12, isn't it? So if you wanted more money and you're willing to get less money in order to have your ends justify the means, make it make sense. How are you going to survive? Are you going to get you another job and work with the competitor until these guys give you what you owe? Like, I don't understand it. Now, I understand about the protesting part. I understand about the desire to have more wage, getting paid what you work. What I don't understand is, how are you surviving? If you were struggling ahead of time, how are you surviving while protesting? Because you're not making any money off the protest. Then the other thing is that since they're probably gonna give it to you because you're in a situation where you've got the whole economy. The economy will crash if we're not transporting goods across country. The economy will crash because products won't get sold, because products will end up being sold out. Certain things online won't be accessible anymore. Certain things in the store won't be accessible anymore. But the fact is that while the industry will suffer, you yourself individually have to figure out how you're going to feed yourself and feed your kids until the money starts coming back. Now, other question that I had, and it was a very interesting question. For those of you who protest with violent protests, this question's for you. You want Boss Man to give you an 80% raise. 80%. And with this 80% raise, you have to recognize that the person that's giving you the 80% raise, you were throwing rocks at, bricks, crashing company cars, all this other stuff in your protest. How do you believe that you will get what you want from the company that you are devaluing and defacing while you're protesting? And then do you believe that somebody can act irrationally and negatively towards your agenda and then demand that you give them full cooperation, or else they will continue to devalue your operation? It's just an interesting question. Now, the upside to the protest is that we don't have to fight with big rigs on the interstate for right now. Downside is that even the mail is running slow. So the court dates and other stuff that you guys are used to enjoy in a timely fashion, you didn't enjoy it. Everybody fucking hates getting summons to court, even if it's in your favor. But it's a principle of the fact that the stuff that was supposed to be coming in 3 to 5 days is now taking 15 to 20 days. And you understand that these guys have only been protesting for a couple weeks, and the economy has already slowed down dramatically. Can you imagine if this happened for 2 months? Like, I'm more than sure that Walmart might run out of groceries, at least in the South and in the East, because Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana and Texas are all affected by it. It's like a third of the country, if you do the math correctly. And you're telling me that, you know, these guys are because everybody wants a raise. Do you know how impactful the books are going to be when everybody gets an 80% raise at the same time? This isn't like giving 2 or 3 people a raise every month, or giving like 5 of the lowest paid people a raise once a quarter. You're talking about 100% of the payroll is going to double. So here's the other problem that happens. Those of you that work in fast food restaurants, those of you that work in hospitality, y'all know that when the boss give y'all big raises, what do? They cut hours. They'll cut hours. Fuck distribution. They'll cut hours. So you'll get the pay, but what they'll do is they'll have less people doing the work, which means that you're going to have to work harder to transport goods, which means that you're not going to be getting paid what you believe that you're worth, because you are negatively impacted by the depreciation of manpower due to the cost of labor. So even the protest in and of itself, for the sake of the people that are protesting, still does have its negative drawbacks, because even if you get everything that you're asking for, you're now put in a position where you're probably going to have to work for yourself, or work by yourself, since you're not working for yourself. And this is just some very radical thoughts. So I figured, you know, we have at least a brief show today, and I will talk about that. And then I wanted to segue into, because I could make a second show out of it, but I just really want to talk about, because I seen this last night, and I just want to ask, why are we letting convicted criminals, violent crimes, back into the United States? When are we going to start promoting exile? And I have to say I told you so, because when I was talking about purging back in March, April, and May, and foreshadowing, now we have that political debate that occurred earlier this week, where Trump mentioned signs of the ideology of purging as a legal factor. Now, I've seen it. And one of the things that I was thinking about, I was like, I'm going to start shipping a lot more ammunition. Because you got to think about the fact that he said 1 hour. He said 1 hour on a very bad day in the worst way is what he said. And I'm sitting over here thinking about, you already got protesters driving around the streets in big rigs, running each other over because they're mad that they're not making enough money. You give them 1 hour of prosecution-free crime. How much stuff do you believe the American people would do if they were given a period of time where no consequences would come from their actions? Let's just be real. If no consequences would come from the actions that you perform, I'm not even going to say negative actions, just no consequences will come from the actions that you perform. So you cannot get arrested for it. You will not go to jail. You can't get sued for it after the fact. If whatever it is that you did, when Donald Trump said that like 1 hour of the worst case scenario in the most extreme way, 1 hour of lawless crime, what would you get? What would you do? What would you do? I know that they got some guys that's on the registry. I know what they would do. I know they got some gold diggers with memberships cards to clothing stores. I know what they would do. But what would the rest of you guys do? Because I know that when I watched the very first purge, the first thing I saw was that all the homies got together in the hood and had a block party. That's the same thing we do during hurricanes, tornadoes, nuclear strikes. Do you know that in Louisiana, while their government is, I can't believe it, in Louisiana, the population in Louisiana actually, instead of hiding and evacuating and running away, they party during natural disasters. So the most impactful celebration occurred before Katrina hit. Do you know the most impactful celebration ever happened in Louisiana after that would probably be when nuclear war hits it? Because it's like, if we're going to die, we're going to have a good time before it happens. So they're just going to party because, why stress over nothing? So if what Trump was asking or suggesting or implying was to occur, and that lawless crime was enacted, would you waste that hour drag racing your Hellcat with your stage 2 kit on it? Or, would you do something more extreme? Or are you the kind of person that just goes to work and minds your business and comes back and says that I did my job? With or without the purge? Like, how would you go about handling that? Because when we start talking about how the truckers are running each other over and crashing into one another's vehicles, and I don't understand how. I see now why there were no police in in cars. There was one sheriff, but like there wasn't really like a lot of like law enforcement all over the place, because who is going to get out there and try to stop cars from crashing into one another talking about some freeze police? They ain't even trying to play. And then you got to think about what kind of police we got these days, because while they protested to get 80% more pay. I'm trying to figure out, like, why are we not protesting to get like better trained sociologically law enforcement officers? Like, why can't we get better somewhere else? But again, this is a very interesting concept. The people that are protesting, the people that are saying, I want more money so that I can do the job. I do a good job. I hit them with like the most arrogant responses is that you pay me for my presence and you pay me extra work. So I'm showing up, I'm clocking in, but I'm not doing anything about it. But the business says that's stealing time. No, you call me when I'm not on the clock, that's stealing my time. So I can clock in and not work for you. That's fair trade. It's a fair trade. So what are you guys' thoughts on the truckers? The truckers running amok in the South, in the East, in the Southeast. And then what do you think would be a reasonable solution? So Viaro, I see you back in here. What would be a reasonable solution to the trucker protest, the warehouse people's protest? Like, is there a way for us to bounce back off of this without having negative retaliation from big business? Because you already know that if your boss didn't want to give you a raise and they were legally obligated to give you a raise, that they typically give you the raise and then they cut your hours, or they give you a raise and then they schedule you on a shift where there's less workers than required to force you to work harder to earn your keep, where you're still getting your hours, but now you're working twice as hard or 5 times as hard, depending on how you look at things. If the workload is going to be harder for you so that they can offset time, like, is it really worth fighting for? And I mean, yeah, having living wage is actually should be an entitlement, but the way the country was designed, with big business being supported and individuality not being supported, you got to ask yourself, are you capable of subcontracting yourself into big business? And that's a very interesting scenario. You notice, do you guys notice those apps where people buy cheap cars and then they rent out their car, and you can order the car and they can either bring it to you, or you can go get it and then you can rent that car for a few days and then bring it back? Like, why are we not setting up a system like that for truckers, where the truckers could, get their rigs and then rent out their rigs, and then people use their rigs and bring the rigs back, pay for maintenance, stuff like that. Then the rig driver starts up his own shipping company. Like, we don't see these kinds of actions and retaliations in our country, but we see it in other countries where when people say that they're going to start their own business, they don't just go do drop shipping or OnlyFans. They actually see a need and then they fix it. So for those of you that are driving trucks and you're like, nah, fuck that shit, I want extra money. You don't have to do all that. You could buy yourself one of those trucks with no pilot in it and say, hey, I'll put this truck in play and do less. You're not getting more, but you're doing less because you're not getting paid what you want to do the maximum quantity of stuff that you was doing. So you're just not going to turn the truck over, but you're going to let the truck do its thing. That's one of the things that we tiptoe around a lot of the time. How do you go about doing it? How do you gauge the difference between demanding more pay or just doing less work for the same pay? Because I understand why we need more money. Most of us are actually under the poverty line anyway. People don't really think about that. In the 50s and 60s, the poverty line was the working class. So remember that. And then remember that the United States has determined that in 2019, February 14th of 2019, that the working class was around 72,000 a year. So if the working class is making $1,650 a week, and that is where the poverty line is, then would it be fair to say that everyone that's making less than that is poor? And then if that's true, then isn't it fair to say that since the welfare programs that was originally enacted by the Democratic parties to take care of the poor individuals, don't you think that particular resource should be expanded across a higher pay scale, at least 50,000? You're poor but making it. I mean, the only reason why those truckers are asking for more money is because they don't have the accessibility of government assistance to buy food. I understand that people don't feel like they need that from time to time, but you have to realize that there's two reasons why you're going to ask for more money. Is because you don't have enough money to pay your bills, or you don't have enough money to buy food after you've paid your bills. Because option number three is having a girlfriend or wife that just wastes all of your money and doesn't make sure that the bills get paid. She looks pretty, but the house is dark, so nobody can see her look pretty. That's where we are with wage increases. And I did a show about this before when I said that we should be really trying to pay everybody what they're worth. But you also know that we're gonna human workers are gonna get phased out by machines because of these massive pay grades. But you can also get you an illegal immigrant that's a murderer on an America's Most Wanted list actually do the same job as protesters that are protesting for 10-15% of the value of what those protesters are protesting for. So as long as there's somebody willing to do it for less, your demand to get paid more for what you do is not relevant. Likewise, if you're in a situation where you're expecting more out of the deal, there's that many people that's not expecting anything out of the deal, the likelihood that you'll get something is slim. But the likelihood of you getting everything that you asked for is none. So let's take that into consideration. I guess with that, I'm going to wrap it up with a short show today. I thought that it was very interesting that the truckers were protesting. I thought it was interesting that the truckers decided to throw in the towel. How you doing, Phil, again? And I actually was wondering how do we get around that? And then before I wrap it up, I want to ask another question. Did you guys hear about the refineries and stuff that was exploding and catching on fire out there in Georgia? Like, what? Somebody asked me, the storm that hit Colorado, I think it was Colorado, like they're not publicizing what happened in Colorado. I said, well, hold on. Now, when we really start talking about the conspiracy theories behind left and right politics, you got to start looking at the fact that, well, the greedy people, they're going to want more. The poverty-stricken people, the impoverished people, they're going to want more. And then you're looking at government entities that are negatively impacted by disasters such as the refinery or whatever burning down. And then you also look at natural disaster comes by and destroys everything. And then you ask me, well, why are they not showing everything on TV? Because they don't want you to know that right now that 2/3 of your country is in chaos. Right? That's why we got social media, because everybody that's got a cell phone and a video camera can record the shit and put it up on social media, because the news is filtered. Only so many things are put up on the news. And depending upon which side of the fence that the news actually supports, it depends upon which news goes out. So if you've got radical Democratic style observers, you might see radical Democratic style storylines. If you see conservative Republican style stories, then likelihood that news broadcast is supportive of Republican styles. Now, when we start dealing with, well, crime is always reported, but when all the natural disasters and all the conspiracy things starts popping up, you start dealing with, well, why didn't anybody say that before? Well, because when it was being said, somebody got taken off the air. And nobody was listening to that person while it was going down. And then after the shit goes south, just like Cat Williams said, I told you so, whoever it was can say, hey, I was telling y'all before nobody was listening. Now that everybody's paying attention to the fact that they've already been fucked over, it's a tad bit too late. But when you start seeing milk at $10 a gallon, you're going to recognize that the increase in pay for those delivery drivers, part of the problem. The refinery being blown up, part of the problem. Did you hear about all of the electric cars that caught on fire in Tampa, Florida, because they got waterlogged by the hurricane? People's houses burned down from electric cars. Not going to stop me from buying an electric car. I'm just going to have that son bitch on stilts. I'm not going to park my car on the ground. I'm going to park my car on the roof. Get your little platform, put it on the second floor, because you don't want your car to get got with the salt water from the ocean. But you got to understand, people be sitting here thinking, oh, well, you get you an electric car and it's so great. It's an electric car. I'm going to tell you right now, before I wrap things up, I will tell you right now, an electric car is a status symbol. Because it takes like 20 to 25 years worth of pollution to create the electric battery that can last 10 years if nobody crashes the car. But the average vehicle lasts 2 to 5 years because somebody crashes the car within 2 to 5 years. So if you've got 20 years of pollution into a 10-year battery and a car gets totaled out inside of 5 years, you're not even getting 20 years worth of emissions back off of those batteries. Then those of you that are spending $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 against the value of the vehicle, where a regular car, $15,000 to $20,000, is electric for $35,000 to $50,000. To get the electric, like the difference between getting a Honda Civic versus getting a Model Y, it's like there's a 30 grand difference. The difference between getting a brand new Model Y and getting a used Model Y is a $15 difference. You can find a used Tesla for $42,000, but you can find you a brand new Toyota Corolla for $22,000. So the difference between an electric vehicle and a gas-powered vehicle is $10,000 to $15,000, $20,000. The difference between the maintenance on a gas-powered vehicle and an electric vehicle is substantial as well, but it costs more money to maintenance a gas-powered vehicle than it does to maintenance an electric vehicle. It's just that when that electric vehicle gets maintenance, it's just expensive. It's just rare, but still expensive. Like the Mercedes-Benz does an oil change once a year, and you think, oh yeah, that's fine. But certain Mercedes-Benz have their scheduled oil change once a year, and that oil change costs $2,500 fucking dollars. You can get you an oil change every month for $100 at a Firestone and hit $1,200 for 12 $100 oil changes. They are doing some special, like unorthodox shit on your Mercedes-Benz to do service on your Mercedes-Benz for $2,500. But it's a status symbol. That's why we said, if you're buying practical, if you're buying within reason, if you're buying within your means, then you're not really wasting all that extra money. So do you really need to demand all that extra money? Or should you be putting yourself in a position where you can make a little extra money on the side out of the money that you have been making, so that you don't have to keep doing this anymore? I think that would be the more logical and rational concept to have, is to wrap your mind around the fact that instead of demanding a 80% pay raise, you say, just give me like 10 or 15%, and then give me the ability in my clause to make the difference up with your competitor. Because the no competition clause is really the only thing that's holding me back. If you're only willing to offer me 20 and somebody else is willing to offer me 30, I need to go work with them. But if you were a rig company where you created your own rigs, the way somebody created Uber, the way somebody created Lyft and mimicking Uber, you could create your own rig company where you got trucks, and the drivers that drive the trucks can give you a percentage, and you can contract with a lot of these companies. And then because you're getting a larger pay because you're subcontracted drivers, you'd be kind of all right. But you also got to recognize that if you're driving somebody else's truck, you're asking for a pay raise. Ain't nobody going to give you no pay raise as the driver as readily as they would replace the driver with a driverless truck. Especially when you start thinking about the driverless truck will last them for a few 100,000 miles, a few million miles, whereas the driver is going to get replaced before that. And 85% less crashes with mono electric vehicles. It's interesting. Just the fact that those some bitches get hot, they get waterlogged, they start exploding. It ain't safe. I just try to figure out, like, as a trucker, I'm just interested to know, guys, if y'all can aid me, help me make it make sense. How is this going to improve your ability to function in the workforce? Because I believe that demanding more effective materials will probably be better for you. Or just have the opportunity for more vacation pay with the option to cash out that vacation pay with no blackouts. I think that would make more sense too. But just stopping productivity because you want to get more money, just find you a better job. That's my personal opinion. If none of them are doing it, then that's the standard. And the standard, you can change the standard by protesting like these people are doing now. But if there's a standard there, the only thing that you can do to change that standard is if you reduce the cost of the standard by asking for less and then offsetting it with the your expectations for success. Then by reducing a standard, there's a new standard. So say, for example, if all businesses are charging 20 to 25, you want to compete with them, you charge 18. You're cheaper than the standard. By changing the standard, the new standard is 18. So in order for you to get the standard to be different, then that means that everybody else has to offer 18. Otherwise, you'll undercut them. There is a law that requires you to bill people fair market, but I mean, you can do a little bit below fair market. There's a flexibility there. But you got to look at your overhead, look at your expenses, and then look at how much they're willing to pay you for what you do. And then you decide whether or not you're going to keep doing that. But I thought that it would be a great idea for us to come in and talk about it and see if you guys had any opinions and insight on the fact that the protesters were protesting and those protests were delaying our transportation of goods and services so that we're not receiving the products that we normally see, that we would not be able to touch base on the fast shipping experience that we used to have. So next day shipping. Timo is perfect right now, guys. I just want to tell you real quick. I'm not yet advertising for Timo, but I have no problem with putting some affiliate links down below. Look at the fact that Timo is giving you $5 if your product comes late. While shipping is struggling, now's the best time to buy shit. Because if you buy an item and they're going to send you a $5 credit for each item that shows late, you buy a bunch of it, buy 50 individual items, you just made $50. And the $5, if it comes late, is not subject to the price value of the purchase. So you could buy something for $5 and then it gets here late and they give you a $5 discount. You can do that until shipping starts becoming on time again, and then you'll be able to take the money that you got off of all of the packages coming late from the protesters and then use that to go buy something more expensive. Even in tragedy, I'm sitting over here thinking of ways where you can utilize the system to make money for you so that you can use that money to make money for you so that you don't got to work as hard to make money. One of these days, we're going to be able to sit down at a powwow and we're going to be able to comb over all the ways we can make ourselves successful. And you guys are going to apply to it. Then you're going to come back and let me know how successful you were. But I am going to put a pin in that. I do need to get in here and grab us some extra content, get some videos put together for the rest of the month. Get some shorts and everything. So I see it looks like Red Voyager jumped in on us on YouTube. I appreciate you coming. You can take a look at the merchandise before you walk out. We've got some shirts, some hats, some necklaces for you fellas that want to get your girl something sweet. And then we also have like coffee mugs, thermos, stuff like that. Like I should start buying some of this and that memorabilia so that you can see it here on the show, because it's really nice stuff. We got throw pillows, we've got towels, we've got all kinds of stuff that you guys would benefit from. It's just going to take a minute for shipping since everybody's protesting on shipping. Doesn't mean that it won't come. It just means it won't come as fast as you thought it would, but it'll still get there and it's still nice stuff. We encourage you guys to show support on the podcast. So remember, we are live 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 5 Pacific, 7 days a week. Sometimes we could get in here a little bit late, but we're always here every day of the week. We always try to put in a minimum of an hour. Try. We don't always succeed, but we try to put in a minimum of an hour. And then after we put in that minimum of an hour, then we double back and try to put up more higher quality stuff throughout the week. And like I told you guys before, we're supposed to be working on the affiliate stuff. So have not seen that book come in yet, but that investor book, once it gets here, I got to do a box opening. And then after I do the box opening, I have to do a review on it. And then after I do a review on it, you're going to see it. You're going to see it on the show after I do the box opening, but I'll do a review on it. And then after I do a review on it, then you'll see me talk about it on the show and be able to tell you what's going on with it and what information is there. And then you guys, I'll encourage you guys, give you some links as to where to go to get it if this is very profitable, because the other reason why I want to kind of wrap this up a little bit is because I do want to get there and find us some more ways to make money for us. So we talked about the tax liens and tax deeds before. We talked about building C corporations before. I feel like talking to you guys about what trusts are, how they work, and what you can do to set them up should be one of the things we should be talking about coming soon, because part of one of the cogs in the wheel of making yourself your own bank and revolving capital in your own setup. Got to do the research in it, get it together so that we can present it up onto the show so that we have a better understanding of how we're going to set these businesses up and make those businesses profitable for us. And then also give it to us in a way where when we receive money from the business, it is non-taxable income, if possible. Those are all the things that we're going to be trying to work on. So I want to see if I can get some of those shows scheduled over for the remainder of October going into November. And then we will be able to follow up with some of our relationship topics, as we have been loyally dedicated to some of our relationship topics. Then we can move our way back into some of the politics that are happening, business and finance, dogs, stuff like that, and cover the spread on everything. And likewise, I'm going to keep you guys informed as to what we're doing with the hotspot. But the hotspot has not been working, so that's another thing I got to do, which requires me to walk away from the fold. So I have to step out so that I can call and find out what they're doing about the device, because the device is not connected. It's plugged into the wall, but that's about it. I'm still providing a hotspot from the cell phone. So since I'm still providing a hotspot from the cell phone, kind of got to figure out what they're going to do about that. So as I walk away, I'm going to go ahead and Curls, you got here at the last minute. We're here at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 5 Pacific. You need to be showing up at like 8:05 or 9:05, something like that. Try to dive in early. But like I said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. I'm going to cut it short today. Ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to ask you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. And for the rest of you guys that are following us from YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, really appreciate you guys coming and showing support. That is highly encouraged and greatly appreciated. Yeah, we didn't get a lot of anything like we wanted to, but you guys have been fantastic showing us support. Let's see. No, we don't have live chat issues. We have fewer. There we go. Fewer views. There it is. They like, what's going on with the chat? Nothing. And yeah, so I appreciate you guys coming to the show, taking a look at what we got going on. Red, like I said, I definitely encourage you to go ahead and take a look at a lot of the stuff that we got in the merchandise. You can always get your girl a this and that pendant. We got those in there. You've got the towels, the throw towels, the beast towels, stuff to that effect that you can take a look at. And also we have toys for the dogs, baby clothes, stuff to that effect you guys can utilize. It represents the brand. And when we see them, we'll bring you right up on the show. So if I see you in passing and you're wearing one of my shirts, I promise you, I'm gonna track you down and be like, hey, get on the podcast while we're doing this and that. So again, I'm gonna go ahead and say I appreciate you guys coming to the show tonight. Thank you for coming to this and that with our short notice, abrupt topic about the protesters and how they're negatively impacting the economy by not transporting goods across the economy, and how we got to figure out how we're not going to suffer from that. The people in the North are not going to experience as much of a drawback as the people in the South, but for those of you that are experiencing it's going to happen. But either way, I just want to make sure that you guys know that yeah, it is happening, and it's a lot of things that's going to change. And as we see those changes, you'll see them here on the show, and I'll be able to remind you when I first told you about these changes long before they happened, the way the Simpsons predicted the future. And then the rest of it is going to be like, man, I can't believe that happened. I didn't know. So again, like I said, I appreciate you guys coming to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this and that and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night. Thank you very much.